today's question is, can I have a cyber / tech career if I have a criminal background? Ooh, this is going to be a spicy one. Let's go.
Very spicy.
So, I wanted to address this question because this comes up all the time. Once I started getting experience helping professionals get started in the workforce community, different community partners that we work with, that I work with a lot, that question comes up all the time. So lead us in as far as the insights and what people can expect on how to answer that question.
Well, I think the first word that comes to mind, and you've said it many times, is trust. It starts with trust and legalities, really. Trust and legalities. So will there or are there companies out there that may be able to hire individuals with a criminal background?
Maybe. So the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question, right? I can't help but to think ISO 20000, the standard, which goes along with ITIL version 4, the framework, right?
Yes.
And what pops out to me is risk, like mitigating risk.
Yes.
Right? And I feel like when people ask that question, they don't have a full understanding of the risk you're asking that company. Because you're supposed to be removing risk from the customer, right?
Correct. And by placing your trust in an IT professional or cyber professional, you're asking risks to be mitigated on that front as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah. Absolutely.
So if I'm coming to you, you're giving me, I'm the customer. I come to you and I'm using your IT services. What you just said, to make sure that people understand this, I am trusting you to mitigate my risk with your IT services. And when I say mitigate the risk, making sure my social security information is secured, phone number, address, what people will call PII, making sure that I'm putting my trust in you to protect my data, right?
Correct. The PII, but more importantly, what is important to that company? Does that company have what we call intellectual property? Intellectual property or things about that company that they want to be kept confidential or even hidden.
Yes, I forgot about that. I wasn't even thinking about that. So that's a whole nother level of trust. Can I trust you to protect my intellectual property?
Yes.
Right? So you said this before. Once you've gotten into the cybersecurity realm, regardless of what domain you work in, we got trust issues, man. I don't trust nobody. I don't trust you. I barely trust you. It ain't nothing personal. It's just that once you've actually been a hands-on cybersecurity professional, we see some things to where, hey, it takes a lot of work to get my trust, and I would imagine it's the same for you.
Yeah, it really is. Being an IT and cyber professional, we are exposed to many flavors of information, and we are expected to protect that. With the utmost integrity and professionalism. And when you dive into someone's personal background, to know that there might be a shadow of doubt behind their background, it may be grounds for termination.
Very true. And it's not to say we don't want to give people second chances, you know, and this is a shout out to all the second chance programs out there. And we know people can change. I know someone who's been in juvenile hall.
Yeah.
They turned it around and had a very successful cybersecurity career.
Yes.
And they were even in the DevSecOps. Yes. But I'm not going to name, I'm not going to say any names to literally protect the guilty if they were in juvenile hall. But is it possible? Yes. But it is not the norm, in my opinion, because it all comes down to not even me as the company. Can I trust you? It's, can my customers trust you? And that's a risk that you're asking that company to take on. Is if I bring you on and you do have a background, what are my customers going to think about that?
Very, very true. And also explain about the governmental type of risks if there was a data breach.
Good point. So anytime there is a data breach, there's typically, you bring in the forensics team.
Yeah.
They do their investigations and they start interviewing people. And if it comes to light that there were people on that team, the cyber team, IT support team, that had criminal backgrounds, you're now that company, because they wanted to give people second chances and give them a try. Now they're vulnerable to paying millions upon millions of fines, right?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of articles you can read out there. I know the Marriott a few years ago was in a sticky situation, and I never forget part of that data breach. There was an attorney general in New York that ordered them to pay for identity theft protection for all their millions upon millions of customers. That's expensive. There are other fines they had to pay for it too. So do you really understand what question you're asking is, hey company, are you willing to put yourself at risk to having to pay these same type of fines that the Marriott had to pay when they went through their fiasco?
Yeah, I think companies right off the bat will probably say, well, in order to not pay those fines and to mitigate any other unexpected financial losses, I will just say no to hiring anyone with a criminal background.
I mean, I hate to agree with you, but it seems like that is the safest answer.
Yeah, and like you said, there are second chance programs out there, but unfortunately, the IT and cyber field might not be the best fit for an individual that has a criminal past.
Good point. Not to say it's not possible.
Correct.
Again, I know someone who's been able to do that.
Yes.
And I take it with a grain of salt, right? Because it depends on what type of offense, a misdemeanor versus federal. I know it will be a lot trickier if you have any federal offenses. And that was me working with some of the students that I work with, and there was an incident where I had a student that came into one of our cyber programs.
Yeah.
They didn't self-identify, and then when they moved on to get they actually had a job offer, and then that background check revealed they had a felony. And the feedback I got from that employer was they don't even consider anyone with a felony for at least 7 years. That was just feedback from the employer, right?
Yeah.
So I invite all employers, anyone who's watching this, hiring managers, talent acquisition people, chime in
Yes,
on the
please.
comments. You give us your feedback. I want those stakeholders, those company leaders to chime in, and you share your feedback, because I don't want you to take our word for it, because this is really, it boils down to let's take it back to ITIL, right? It's the stakeholders, and you have several different stakeholders. You have your business stakeholders. You have the consumer, right? Because you also it really boils down to that consumer.
Yeah.
Am I protecting that consumer? And then now the business, like you said, intellectual property. The business stakeholders, they care about their intellectual property.
Yes.
Patents, et cetera, right? There's a lot at stake here, and then the other stakeholders that are around that, right?
Yeah.
These are the people that you may be putting at risk just because you wanted to give someone a second chance. But I really want to hear some comments and feedback from those, business stakeholders out there.
Absolutely. This conversation must be kept going, with individuals that can add more to this subject, because it is an important piece, because it's an aspect when we talk about the talent pipeline, who can be included in that pipeline and who cannot.
Touche.
I think the individuals need to know where that talent pipeline can come from, and so if it is at all possible to have a criminal background, we like to hear from individuals that have more to the story, right? But what we're sharing is what we see very common, right? and we just want the conversation to be to keep going and to talk more about this.
Yep.
The likes, the dislikes, the ins and outs, the particulars. It's great information to know. And maybe there's some particular nuances that we're not aware of.
Good point. Good point. So if there's a nuance out there to where, well, maybe you know what, we have a way. Please let us know. But wrapping everything up, I don't know, man. Maybe. I think we in this. The answer to this question is maybe. Follow with the most likely not. But again, we would like to hear more from other business leaders out there. Share your thoughts on it. Comment. If you see this on one of the social media channels, just chime in because we want to be able to get feedback out back to the community when it comes to us.
100%.
I mean, just to, like you said earlier, to just stay on the side of caution. I'm thinking the standard answer would probably be no. But I think the lesson from this conversation is if you're young, stay out of trouble, man. I'm gonna say that every time. Stay out of trouble.
Yes.
I would say this, right? The old adage is idle mind is the devil's playground, right? Mm-hmm. If you're young and you know you want a career in tech and cyber, spend that time building your lab, right? Spend that time learning. Yes. Keep your mind busy, because if you can keep your mind busy, then you're a probability guy. That probability of you getting into trouble, finding trouble, goes down.
Correct.
Right. So that would be my recommendation. If you're a little bit older, if you don't already have any, anything on your record, keep it that way. If you do have a record, I don't know. That more to come. Like you said, I think this conversation still needs to keep going. But for anyone of the youngins watching this, if you're young, just keep that mind busy. Keep learning. Start learning now. Build your labs. If you're older and you're making a career transition, if you don't have a record yet, I would give you the same advice.
Yeah.
Just spend that time learning. Keep your mind busy, because then you're at a lower risk of getting in that type of trouble that will prevent you from having that career you wanted.
Agreed. Stay productive, and simply just stay out of trouble.
Yeah, man. And I think we're going with a no, right? I think we're going with a no for now.
It's a no for me.
It's a no for him. I think I would have to say probably not. Probably not with a maybe. Option A, no. Option B, maybe. And as always, until next time, cheers to your success.